Hello, lovers. We are outside today. Oh my goodness. It is the last day, well, not the last day of summer, but we're in the last days of summer. But I'm taking every opportunity that I have to take in the sun and, be outside, really enjoy the view as much as I can. And today I want to talk about books, specifically the books that made my summer. So I want to take you through my summer in books. And I thought it would be even better to do this outside. But now that we're outside, it's so windy, and I'm hoping that this actually, comes out nicely. But yeah, let's talk about books. If you're new here, my name is Ego. Welcome to my channel. Make yourself comfortable and let's get to it. Okay, first, let me try to answer the question, what makes a good summer read? I think that differs from person to person. What makes a book a good summer read for me is kind of classified into two categories. I like books that I can picture myself sitting by a beach or in a cabana reading something light and airy and fun, hopefully romantic, because I am a huge romance reader. But in second category, when it comes to summer, I also think books that are really exciting and thrilling and maybe not necessarily light and airy. Think Gone Girl or, those books in that type of genre. Yeah, either of them for me classifies as a summer read, and I have both those categories covered in the books I'm going to be talking about today. Starting with the not so romantic, more exciting, more thrilling, slightly scarier category, the first book is going to be I Know What You Did Last Summer by Lois Duncan. And this is, if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what this is about. Not only was this such a fun read, it was a very quick one, a very, very quick one. There were no surprises with this one because I'd already seen the movie multiple times in the past, 2 decades or something. If you've never seen it, you've seen the movie and you've never read the book, it's about a group of friends who, after a party, were on their way home and were drunk and they hit someone, and they all make a pact that they're going to get rid of the body. And they don't do a very good job of, first of all, making sure that the person that they killed was dead. And two, they don't do a very good job of getting rid of the body either. And they kind of drift apart after that because, it's a traumatic thing, but they all decide to keep the secret. And what happens is they spend the following summer trying not to be killed, trying to outsmart the killer. I'm trying really hard to give a description of the book and how good it was without spoiling it, but I feel like if you don't know about I Know What You Did Last Summer by now, time has passed. Spoiler, sorry. And the second book, speaking of another book that was turned into a motion picture, this is The Body by Stephen King. This was the second book that I read this summer. Also a really, really quick read, and it was adapted into the 1986 classic Stand By Me. There were also no surprises here, but it is sort of a historical fiction, at least that's how I think about it, because it's set in the summer of 1960, or I think 1970, in a relatively small town. So after a young boy goes missing, the main character, Gordy, and his friends take it upon themselves to go find the boy's body along the rail track. And on this adventure, we really get to know more about the boys, who all individually have traumatic, dysfunctional family situations that they're dealing with at the time. They're between the ages of 12 and 13 or 11 to 13 kind of. So it's an adventurous book. It's one that I've always wanted to read because it's a classic that's existed since before I was born. So I'm glad I got a chance to read it during the summer. And it's an even quicker read than I Know What You Did Last Summer. They were such quick read and so similar. I didn't even plan it, but after I finished reading, I was like, oh, these books look so similar. That's so funny. On to the third book. I also want to state that these are not ranked in any specific order. I'm not going in order of what I enjoyed the most or what I didn't enjoy the most. I'm just talking, just yapping here. And the third book, which was the first romance book that I read during the summer, is Say You Be Mine by Naina Kumar. And I loved this book so much. First of all, I love Bollywood movies. Indian films, they do the exact job that they're supposed to do. So about a decade ago, about 5 years ago, when I started reading books by Indian authors, it was like a whole new world. And so I wasn't surprised that I loved this book as much as I did. The book is gorgeous. It is a fake engagement story where the female main character, Meghna, needs a plus one for a wedding party that she is a part of, where she is or was in love with one of the people getting married. And the reason why Catherick agreed to the fake engagement was to get his matchmaking mother off his back. So they're both getting something out of it. And, like friendship forms, because they're in an alliance. They're trying to get one over on the people in their lives. And although I'm a romance reader, right, and I do love a good, well-written arranged marriage, fake marriage plot, as a person whose life's happiness isn't predicated on whether or not they get married, I really related to how this book unfolded. I especially related to the main male character, which is, sometimes rare for me to really self-identify with a person in the book or with a character in the book. But I really loved his character because his fears about marriage kind of overlapped with mine, what I think about marriage, for very different reasons. So I think the book does do a good job of flipping that trope on its head a little bit, where even though the guy is the one who is hesitant to get married, he's not hesitant just because he's a man, but he's hesitant for some really, really well-grounded fears and feelings. The thing that I love the most about where the author took these two characters on their journey is they both end up in this really beautiful place where the lesson that they learn is not that they need to be married in order to be happy. That's not the lesson that they learned. I love that it was more about them engaging with the idea that perhaps the way love has been portrayed in their life is not necessarily how they have to approach it, and they have to look into what they think marriage looks like versus what it could look like for the both of them together. And I really love when an author finds a way to do something like that, especially in situations like this where it's so culturally specific, right? In the Indian culture. I love that the author wasn't looking down her nose at the idea of the cultural impact or the way the Indian culture navigates marriage in that way. So it's not a sort of it's bad the way things have been done. It's more engaging with what it means to you and how the characters want to engage with the institution that is set up around them. I also love the parents in this book. I think they were well fleshed out, really well-rounded parents, which I think sometimes is rare. Another thing that I learned is that the characters in this book are Tamil characters, and I didn't know until I was engaging with the book talk community that also are part of the Tamil community that apparently that is rare. They don't have a lot of representation in romance literature. So a huge win for my Tamil brothers and sisters. I guess this was fun. This was such a fun read. I can't recommend it enough. And the next book is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I know that I said I am going in no particular order, and I might say this about a lot of books on this list, but this was so good. My God, this was good. It wasn't shocking. For the past 5 years now, Emily Henry has been knocking it out of the park when it comes to her books that I think they've been coming out every summer. So I was expecting to really like this book because I liked the one from last year, Happy Place, but I didn't expect to love this character. Look, I'm not the kind of girl that has book boyfriends, right? I hear that a lot, oh, this person is my book boyfriend, this character is my book boyfriend. I love Miles so much, the main male character in this book. So this book follows Daphne and Miles. Daphne, the female main character, is dumped by her boyfriend Peter, who leaves her for his best friend Petra, who happens to be dating our main male character Miles. And Daphne, our female main character, moved to this new town because of the person she was supposed to be getting married to, who has now dumped her. So she basically has no one else, no other friends. So she and Miles decide to commiserate together by living together. And they're not friends. They obviously had mutual friends because their partners were best friends, but they end up living together to survive the, love droughts that they've now been thrown into. And the story unfolds from there. I love how beautifully it's so good. It was so good. I can't tell you how good this book was. It was really heartwarming. Both characters were really grounded. They're clearly dealing with a lot of their own personal, interpersonal issues, a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of things, happening underneath emotionally for the both of them. And then with the breakup happening on top of all of that, seeing the both of them communicate with each other, get to understand each other, be so kind and considerate of each other was such a beautiful thing, such a beautiful beautiful, beautiful story. Shout out to Emily Henry. She truly is a gifted writer. I love this book. It was a huge, huge, huge hit for my summer. And the hits just keep coming. This is a love song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. I think I have talked about this book in one of my vlogs, like the month where I read it, which I think was May, or maybe it was June. But I don't know what it was about this book. This was one of the first books that I got in the summer, and I saw it and I was like, I love Tia Williams' work. I'm going to read this book. And for some reason, I got 2 chapters in. I don't know if it was the mental space I was in. I stopped reading it and I read 7 more books in between. And I didn't pick it up until like the end of that month, but it wasn't because the book wasn't good. I don't know what it was, but I found it really funny. I didn't think it was a bad thing because I am the kind of person who believes that sometimes there's certain things that have to be read at a certain time. There's certain things that have to happen at certain times. So I just chucked it up to one of those like, oh, I wasn't meant to read it then. That's why it wasn't calling to me then. And that might just be a long-winded way of me saying I'm a mood reader, but I don't know what it was. When I finally picked it up, I just started all over again. I couldn't put it down. I finished it in like a day. It is so good. It's funny. It's sexy. And the book is set in Harlem, but I don't quite know how to give a full description of this book without giving spoilers, telling you anything about the 2 characters beside how decadent their love was. And it was this book is passion. The characters are so passionate, not just about themselves or about the romance itself, but they're passionate about the things in their lives. He's a musician. She's a florist. And honestly, calling Ricky a florist seems to like minimize what she does with flowers. She's an artist who just happens to be a florist. That's the best way to describe it. And the book is so vivid in its description of everything, of them, of the people in their lives, like the secondary characters and the time periods that they're in. This book, it was just such a blast. It screamed summer. It screamed life. This book had so much life weaved into it. I loved it. There were some parts of the book where I feel like I could dance through the book. It was so well done, so well written. I don't know if you can tell, but the sun is slowly abandoning me. So let's wrap this up. So speaking of great writers, Christina Lauren, the book that came out this year is a book called The Paradise Problem. And this is a very kind of stereotypical opposites attract trope. It's 2 people who had gotten married because they needed to be married while they were in college to sign a lease together. And apparently when they lived together, knew nothing about each other, but they broke up at the end of their education and kind of went their separate ways. And years later, he reaches back out to her because he apparently had never told his family that he was no longer married. So for the past 2 to 5 years, within that period, she had been single, but he clearly had not told his entire like family and friends that he was no longer married to her. And they have a family event coming up and he needs a wife. So he reaches back out to her. So they spend the entire time like being fake married. That's really all I can say. But this book also screams summer because like for the bulk of the book, they're on vacation anyway. At least like 80% of the book happens while they're on vacation with the family, doing this farce, faking it. And of course they get to know each other and they fall in love. It's a romance, but what else do you expect? It's pretty straightforward. Okay, the next book is Between Friends and Lovers. This one I just finished reading like 2-3 days ago, and it is the sweetest book. What a way to round up my summer. It was just so beautiful. The feeling I got when I was reading this book is I love when an author is so emotionally generous in how they approach putting a character onto paper. I always feel so grateful for an author that isn't holding back, especially when the main character in this book is a woman of color. And there are some times when I'm reading certain books, like even in real life, where I feel like we're not really given the space to navigate, at least in public, the full spectrum of human emotion. So when a character or a person in general can do that, or like find a way to really bring that on screen in a way that is so beautifully handled, and it doesn't feel like the person is going for extra corny or the person is like dredging up emotions just to be emotional. I'm so grateful for books like that, for authors that take the time to do that, because I know that can't possibly be easy. But this book is so swoon worthy. There are many parts in the book where I was giggling and laughing out loud. It was such a fun read. It follows 2 characters, technically 3 characters. It's kind of a love triangle trope, but I don't know that I consider it to be a full love triangle, because there was one person that I wasn't even rooting for. If I'm not rooting for one person, the triangle is never complete in my own head. That's how I think of it. But it is technically a love triangle. And our main character, Dr. Josephine Boateng, is not a practicing medical practitioner. She is I guess you would call her a health educator, public health educator, Instagram influencer type of person. And she's juggling a lot. Her bumbling love life, which you see right at the very beginning of the book. She is pining after someone who is a really close friend to hers. And from the very beginning, I got the sense of like, he knows she's pining after him. He's just choosing not to know. He's choosing to be ignorant about it. So you meet her at that point. She's at a very low point emotionally when it regards to her romantic life. And you also see that she's dealing with depression, really high functioning depression. So she looks okay from the outside. And she has a very generous, outgoing personality, a very generous spirit about her. You get that too at the very beginning of the book. She's a very full of life person. So it doesn't come as a shock, at least like I don't think it should come as a shock, but it is a little surprising when you realize how much she's dealing with because of how her external facade, plays. But she meets this other character, Malcolm, who I love. Great, great character. The communication in this book is top tier. I love it. I can't talk about how much I love this book enough. I will be recommending it to my friends for the rest of the month. I'll tell you that. Yeah, she meets this new person who plays a very vital role. I mean, they play very integral roles in each other's growth and development. Even right now as I'm talking about it, I realize that they both approach their love for each other in a way that is so giving, right? They manage to be selfish enough to know when to put themselves first and when to communicate their own needs, but at the same time not be self-involved. And I learned a lot from that. I don't even think that I wasn't planning on learning something like that when I picked up the book. But yeah, great book. Loved it. And those are the books that were my main reads for the summer. When I made a list of the books that I wanted to read this summer, those are the books that were at the top of my list. There's one that I still haven't gotten to. It's on my list for next month. I'll be reading it maybe in October. It's called Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And I can't wait to read it. I may actually just jump and read it this month, but that would probably mean sacrificing one of my September TBR, one of the books that I plan on reading this September. But I don't know. Let's see how I feel. The one common theme in the books that came out this summer, from what I read, I should say, is lovers communicating. What a concept. What a, so refreshing, because sometimes the miscommunication, and some of these did have slight miscommunication tropes, but not to the point where you're just screaming at the book, talk to each other. What the hell is wrong with you? But yeah, it was so fun. It was such a fun read this summer. All right, a bonus list. These are books from past summers and much, much, much older books. The two that I think came out last year that I read and really loved were Happy Place by Emily Henry and The Summer of Broken Rules. And those two books were part of my book club pick for the summer of 2023. And they were such huge hits for me personally, but for the book club in general. We really enjoyed the entire thing. I loved Happy Place because first, not only did it scream summer, the characters were all on vacation. And I love a love story that encompasses more than just romance. There was a lot of relationships in the book because it was a huge group of friends that included the main couple that are at the center of this romance. So it's a lot of navigating those relationships as well as the romantic relationships. And it made the story feel full. It made it feel really well-rounded, And I always feel we should have more books like that where we're talking about love in many different forms that it shows up in our lives. And The Summer of Broken Rules leans YA, but was so maturely written, especially because of how the main male character is. He's young, but just seemed really mature. The main female character was so sweet, but she's in the book dealing with huge loss, so you're on that journey with her. But in the midst of that, it still somehow managed to be such a fun book. And the thing it had in common with Happy Place was that they were a huge family vacationing. They're all gathered somewhere for a destination wedding, but there are lots of different things happening, games happening during the book. But it was just such a fun, really well-written book that I think I loved maybe more than the average person because I wasn't expecting much going into the book. I don't know if that sounds bad, but I really wasn't expecting much. It was just supposed to be it wasn't my pick of those, so I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. And then there are books that I recommend as summer reads, but I didn't reread this year. The Fifth Avenue Rebel series by Joanna Shupe and any of Emily Henry's past work. You have Book Lovers, People We Meet on Vacation, and Beach Read, which is my own personal favorite. I love that book so much. Gus and January, they will have my heart till eternity. But yeah, I am done. I am done talking about books. This was such a fun video to make. I am glad I left the house today after work, and I am more than grateful and happy to have had the reading summer that I did. And I'm hoping you did too. Let me know what you read this summer. What are some of the things that you read this summer? Do you have any recommendations for me? Is there anything you think I would enjoy reading? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, like it, share it, do all the things. I really hope you liked it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye.